Hi, thanks for checking out my channel where we ask the question, what's that all about? So today I'm going to be taking you on a personal journey because I live in Idaho and I'm going to be focusing on some mysterious disappearances in my state. This came from a YouTube channel called Can-Am, and it's Dave Politis's channel, and it's outstanding. He does a series of videos on suspicious disappearances and missing people. I mean, they're not all suspicious, but a lot of them are. He has certain criteria that he follows that I don't want to steal from him, and I'll talk about them later in another episode. But for this purpose, we're going to be focusing on a certain area of Idaho, which is only about an hour, a little over an hour away from where I am. It's called Craters of the Moon, and it's surrounding, it's like the circumference, I would go about 20 miles around it. But it's a tourist attraction. It's about 20 minutes north of Pocatello, and it has, as gorgeous as it is to be, it's there and to look around and everything. It's dangerous. I mean, the terrain is treacherous at best. So the trails, though, are kept very well. And I just want to dive in because I have a lot I want to get to. And the first really mysterious disappearance that occurred was in 1954, April 11th. The gentleman's name was Nate Perry. He was a sheep herder, and he mysteriously went missing. And he, no matter how much searching was done, air, land, dogs, everything, he's never been found. Not one trace of him has ever been found, which is, I mean, when there's no trace of anyone gone missing, it leaves so many questions. And of course, the families with no answers. And that's probably harder than anything. And then if you fast forward now, okay, and we're going to move 20 miles north of where Nate Perry went missing, there was two young boys, one by the name of Jeff Hodgson and another one by the name of Rocky. And I don't think Dave Politis did not use his name. So I'm just going to call him Rocky like he did. Now, Jeff was 11, Rocky was 10, and they were part of a group out of Pocatello. And it was an environmental excursion group where they could learn how to hunt and fish and camp and, make fire and all these things. And the group was made up of 9 boys and 2 girls and 4 adults. So they had enough food and water. Now, keep in mind, it's June, so the heat was unbelievable, okay? And Craters of the Moon and the surrounding areas is part of, the high desert. So you've got, just desert, no shade for miles, right? So anyway, they kind of started going through their water a little quicker than they anticipated. And these 2 young boys, Jeff and Rocky, they started to lag a little bit. The adults had decided to break the groups into 2. So you get 2 adults, and then, split the kids up. But as time went by, Rocky and Jeff were noticing they were getting further and further away from the group. And when they got to a point where they knew they were not going to be able to catch up, they found a group of rocks. They sat down and they said, you know what? They'll be back for us. It'll be fine. Well, unfortunately, no one noticed they were missing. So when it started to get dark, Rocky thought he saw in the distance a city. He thought he saw lights, and he says, I think I'm going to try. I think I can make it, and I'm going to go and get us some help. Now, Jeff was terrified. They were both terrified, but Jeff had tears in his eyes, and, Rocky felt bad, but he said, I think I can make it. I'm going to go get us help. So he left, and Jeff was just, he left there to sit and imagine how scared he was. I can't even imagine. But 36 hours went by, and this organization did not tell the parents when they learned of this boys that they were missing these 2 boys. They didn't tell the parents. I mean, I find that just more than disturbing. Eventually, they came to Crystal Ice Caves, which is in Splitview. Now, the sheriffs were notified and a search was started. And when I say a search, it was like all hands on deck. It was, just like with Nate Perry, but it was, it was 74, so there was a lot more that could be done. So they were up in the air. National Guard was called, and all these things. But the heat was amazingly tough on the searchers. There was even one woman named Shirley Egan. She collapsed and died on June 14th from heat exhaustion. I mean, that's this is the kind of terrain and the kind of you know what kind of climate they were dealing with. It was awful. And then after that happened, they heard about Rocky being found 25 miles. This little boy had walked 25 miles and had finally come upon a farmer who had rescued him and, returned him to his family, which oh my gosh. Now, by this time, the search had kind of dwindled in numbers only because it's so expensive and the resources just couldn't, continue with 24-hour searching. So, but it was in the news. And a young man in Arizona who was a transplant, he came from California, 25-year-old. His name was Gerald Sturm. And he woke up in the middle of the night after having a dream. And it was a dream about Jeff. And in his dream, he saw where he was. So a few hours later, 5:30 in the morning on June 20th, he drove to where the headquarters was for the search, which was at the Crystal Ice Caves. And he told the searchers, I think I can find him. Now, the searchers were telling him that, we've exhaustively searched the south side of Splitview, so we're going to go east. And Gerald was like, I don't think that's where he is. I'm going to go south. And they went their separate ways. And Gerald positioned himself on top of a butte that looked out over, the landscape. And he could see down a couple of miles, and he could see the exact image of what he had seen in his dream, which were like these boulders and these black rocks, the lava rocks of craters of the moon that scatter out miles and miles. And he walked down towards where he was going, where his vision had led him. And he came upon like a huge 10-foot boulder. As he walked around this boulder, he saw a straw hat that he actually had seen in his dream. So he knew it was going to be there. But as he continued to walk, he saw socks. And then as he continued to walk a little bit further, he saw some shoes. And then he saw a belt. And then he saw lying on his side, half on his stomach, the poor little body of Jeff. And he knew he was dead. And he took a moment. He collected himself. He prayed. And then he made his way back to the search headquarters. And then the coroner had come out and determined that Jeff had died from heat exhaustion and dehydration. Now, the strange thing is, when Gerald was interviewed, he said that what he found very mysterious was the fact that where Jeff's body was, all around it were searchers' footsteps or footprints. He found it amazing that Jeff wasn't found sooner, because the coroner said that he had been dead for days. And now Gerald does not claim to be a clairvoyant. He had never had a premonition before, but what he did say was that he had heard the news about this little boy, and he decided he was just going to try to clear his mind of everything and go to sleep that night and see if something could come to him. And it did. He had that dream. I think the best part, I guess, about this is that Jeff was found and his family was able to get some closure, which was good. But it's heartbreaking, to think about what everyone went through and what these poor little boys went through, and Jeff especially. But the next disappearances I want to tell you about, it doesn't get better. Let's put it that way. This was about 35 or 40 miles north, and it was like really right in Craters of the Moon National Park. But the women's names were Amy Linkards and Joe Elliott Blakesley. And Amy was 69 years old and Joe was 63. Now, this happened on September 23rd of 2013, so getting a little bit more recent. Now, these ladies, just as a little background, they were well educated. They were literally devoted their lives to helping other people, and they were just wonderful people, and everyone loved them. And they decided Amy had retired, and Joe had just taken off some time from work. She worked at the Idaho Corrections facility. So she had taken some time off work, and they decided they were going to take a camper and go see some sights around the beautiful state of Idaho. So they went to a KOA to leave their camper, which was about 22 miles away from Craters of the Moon. They got their 2 Labradoodles and got in their truck and headed towards Craters of the Moon. And they parked just past a trailhead called Tree Molds, and right near Devil's Orchard Trail. I can't help but think that that's like a foreshadow of things to come. So it was the terrain around where they were. It's rugged. If you go off trail, which nobody goes off trail at Craters of the Moon. Nobody. I don't care what good shape you're in or not, but you don't go off trail. And besides, they keep the trails well defined, clear, beautiful. I mean, tourists are there all the time. So they venture out. Now, they had told friends, don't worry, we're going to be here for a couple days. You know, if you don't hear from us, we're just out, adventuring. Well, a couple days go by, and friends started to get a little concerned because they had a habit of checking in. So friends called and alerted the Park Service, who quickly found their truck, but in their truck were their 2 Labradoodles. Now, to know these women and their relationship with their dogs, I equate it to how I am with mine. I don't even leave my baby for an hour, and neither did these ladies. So the fact that these dogs were left alone in their truck in the heat, I mean, it was excruciatingly warm. But they were okay. I swear, when I first was learning about all of this, Dave Paulides was saying that, something about the dogs, and I went, I'm either stopping here, but if they're okay, I'll continue. They were okay. So that's good. But anyway, the press caught wind of it, and the search was on in full throttle. I mean, it was like you had air, ground, dogs, the whole 9 yards. And a National Guard chopper helicopter was in the air and actually found Amy's body first, 2 miles southwest of the trail. Now, the park superintendent is quoted as saying it was in a very rugged and inaccessible area. What the hell was she doing there? And how the hell did she get there? I mean, there was no trace of any other footprints. There were no trace of her footprints, just her body. So now these ladies, it is important to note, they were not athletes. They actually weren't even in good shape. They were going to walk a path. They were going to go on a trail. They'd done it before. They had a blast doing it. So anyway, and I'll tell you what, these searchers, they put in the park superintendent said they did between 3,000 and 4,000 hours of searching over 10,000 miles. I mean, that's amazing, the dedication that these people did. But again, the resources start to dry up when you can't afford to just keep going back out there. The helicopter alone, and those resources, it just started to dry up. So on October 1st, the search was effectively shut down. But fast forward to October 23rd, and another helicopter was flying over an area that they had searched a lot before. So it was a surprise when they found a body that was, quote, in a very nasty piece of land amongst the craters and the rocks. They had found Joe, and both deaths were attributed to dehydration and heat exhaustion. Sound familiar? Now, David Paulides requested numerous times for the medical reports of the women. He wanted to know, he had a lot of questions because, first of all, the dogs. Nobody believed that they would ever leave their dogs, ever. And then he wanted to know, because of where they were found, were their boots like all torn up? Because these rocks, these lava rocks, are unbelievably sharp. And he wanted to know about their clothing, but he also wanted to know about the condition of their bodies. Was there foul play? Did they fall? The thing is, they were found in the middle of these areas that just aren't even accessible to people. Nobody goes in there because you can barely even get in there, even an experienced hiker. So he was denied all requests from the Park Service. He does complain quite a bit about the lack of transparency sometimes within his other missing persons cases. He requests this information a lot, and they wouldn't give it to him. And a lot of the people he works with told him, there's a cover-up going on here. There's something very mysterious about these women's disappearance. And, that everything was staying hush-hush. So, he wanted to point out a couple of things, though, two very highly unusual circumstances. First of all, it's in less than 1% of the cases that he studies or, goes out and helps with, there's less than 1% of two people going missing at the same time. Okay, you had the little boys and you had Amy and Joe. So you tell me. I mean, that's just highly unusual. And then the women, he said, it's ironic, but in every other case he's found these women who have gone off hiking on their own. A lot of them are physically unfit to be doing a really strenuous hike of any kind. And they all have extremely short hair, as you can see in the picture. He finds that very unique. But he has so many more reports out there of suspicious disappearances and missing people. I am definitely going to be following up on a few of them because there is a UFO connection, we suspect. And that would be pretty extraordinary to follow up on. If you liked this episode, please like and subscribe, and we'll try to figure it out. What's that all about? I don't know. Maybe you do. Leave a comment. So take good care and stay happy and healthy. Stay weird. Thanks for stopping by.